Japanese man reincarnated as a young girl in an alternate war-torn Europe. In a world of magic, politics, and war, the story of a young girl with an unbelievable secret identity unfolds. In the 1920s, on an alternate Earth, the Empire rules over most of Europe, but is surrounded by many enemies and few allies. The war eventually breaks out between the Empire and its enemies, and a young girl is recruited into the Empire's Mage Corps. Tanya Degurecheff, an ordinary girl to those around her, is a reincarnated Japanese salaryman whose refusal to acknowledge a deity known as God before his death caused the deity to reincarnate him as a girl in an alternate war-torn Europe as punishment. Will this little girl survive the alternate world, and will anyone ever discover her true identity? Continue watching to find out more. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. At the Rhine, the Imperial Army goes to battle against the Francois Republic. There, the girl leads platoon 205 in combat with enemy forces along with a corporal, Victoria Serebriakov. When two mages under this girl's command disobey her orders, she transfers them to the rear. The girl leads her platoon to reinforce platoon 403, but before she can get there, the 403rd platoon is destroyed by enemy mages. Tanya orders the members of her platoon to rendezvous while she bravely engages with the enemy all by herself, ultimately annihilating them. Later, in the Republican capital of Paris, military leaders discuss the young girl, giving her the title, the Devil of the Rhine, for her fearsome combat abilities. Meanwhile, at the Imperial headquarters, Lieutenant Colonel Rerugan also voices his concern about Tanya, calling her a monster. At the Rhine, Victoria learns that the disobedient mages this girl sent to the rear were actually killed during the battle. Victoria realizes that Tanya had cunningly anticipated and planned their deaths. In Tokyo in 2013, an underperforming salaryman is fired by his supervisor and, in a fit of rage, pushes the supervisor in front of a moving train. As the supervisor falls onto the tracks, time stops. He hears the words of a self-proclaimed god coming from the people at the station, demanding the supervisor acknowledge him as a god. The supervisor refuses, insisting that the being is not God and instead names it Being X. Being X concludes that the supervisor lacks faith in him because he doesn't live in circumstances that would require him to have faith. So, Being X decides to reincarnate him as a girl in an alternate 1913-era Europe, where his troubles could potentially force him to have faith. Tanya grows up in a poor orphanage in Barun, where it's discovered that she has an exceedingly high magical aptitude. She enlists in the Imperial Army, having always believed in having a better life than as an orphan in wartime. She performs well and is asked to train new cadets at a military academy, but proves to be ruthless and unforgiving to her students, much to Colonel Rerugan's horror. In 1923, at 9 years old, this little girl is an artillery observer at the northern garrison during the invasion of the Empire by the Entente. Colonel Sue of the Entente leads a mage battalion after Tanya, who is ordered to delay them. She succeeds in delaying the battalion but suffers a great injury. Later, at the garrison headquarters, she is awarded the Silver Wings Assault Badge. Hoping to not get sent to the front lines, much to her relief, she is instead dressed up and praised as a hero of the Empire. After recovering from her injuries, Tanya is assigned to the Tactical Instructor Squad away from the front. She tests a new type of computation jewel, a device necessary for mages to perform magic, the Elenium Type 95. But this proves to be as dangerous as fighting on the front lines due to its extreme instability. Chief Engineer Adelheid von Schugel pushes her to her limits, but is unable to make the Type 95 sufficiently stable. After criticizing the technology, she requests a transfer which is approved, and the project is frozen. That night, Being X animates a Nutcracker doll and accuses the girl of not having developed any faith or insight. But she disagrees with him and destroys the toy. She wakes up the next day assuming it was a dream, but sees a paper with Deus lo vult, God wills it, written on her bedside. She participates in one more experiment, and just as the Type 95 is about to explode, Being X performs a miracle and stabilizes the jewel to prove his power to her. As a result, the Type 95 is only usable by the girl, greatly amplifying her powers on the condition that she prays to Being X. Instead of being thankful, she sees this new power as a curse. The next year, the girl is again sent to the front, eventually leading to the events of the battle at the Rhine. Headquarters decides to send her back to Berun for officer training, and she suggests Victoria should go as well, so they both prepare to leave. Meanwhile, Headquarters realizes the need for a rapid response unit in the Imperial Army. 6 months after leaving the front lines, Tanya is still training to be an officer at a military academy and is doing well in her studies when she meets General Zetur in the academy's library, who asks her for her opinion on the war. After predicting that it will turn into a world war, she outlines a strategy for the Empire, suggesting they use firepower and mages to minimize military losses. The general is impressed by her battle knowledge and asks for a report, which she sees as an opportunity to advance her career. Later, she meets Captain Uger, one of her academy rivals, in a cafe, who confesses that he's more concerned about his family than the war because he fears his daughter will be forced to fight. She emotionally manipulates him into dropping out of the academy, thus securing her position as one of the best students. At a conference at the Imperial headquarters, General Zetur tables the Tanya's plan for a rapid response Mage battalion, which is accepted, however, at the garrison. Rarigan is furious when he learns that her plan has been implemented and she is now in command of the Rapid Reaction Force. She is invited to dinner with the colonel, where she is put in charge of a new battalion and promoted to the rank of captain, but despite this, she is horrified because it will be even more dangerous than fighting on the front lines. She tries to delay the formation of the battalion, but when a newly promoted Victoria is assigned to help her, she is forced to accept her fate. She holds a test to decide which applicants are worthy of joining her battalion, but most fail, leading to a low recruitment rate. After her superiors claim that her standards are too high, she reluctantly agrees to accept lower standard mages, but promises that she will bring them all to an acceptable standard in just a month. Her ruthless nature is revealed when she holds a grueling training regime that nearly kills the mages. They refuse to drop out for fear of punishment, and so within a month, she manages to transform them into skilled soldiers. She then leads her battalion to the Grand Duchy of Dacia, which has mobilized its troops and crossed imperial borders, and after her battalion easily defeats their troops, she marches them to the capital, where she plans on destroying an unprotected arms factory. Due to an international law, they can only destroy the factory if they declare their intentions beforehand. Tanya cunningly uses her childlike voice to broadcast her intentions to destroy the factory over a radio, knowing full well that the Dacians won't take her seriously. Her scheme works, and after the broadcast, her battalion easily destroys the factory, whose workers are caught completely off guard. After their overwhelming success, the battalion returns to base. The Imperial headquarters decides to destroy the Entente once and for all, and they send the girls' battalion to Norden to fight against them. She and Victoria discuss the possibility of the Entente being allied to the Republic, and this later proves to be true, and she realizes that being X is deliberately causing the upcoming World War, so she is forced to worship him. At Norden, the Viper Battalion fights against Entente forces but suffers heavy losses until Tanya's battalion arrives in time to launch a counterattack. She proves her determination by refusing the offer to be reinforced, as she wants to show that her battalion can defeat the enemy all on its own. During the battle, Being X animates a dead soldier who asks her how it feels to fight a war against the whole world, but instead of responding, she furiously shoots the soldier and destroys a hidden Allied Kingdom observation post that was gathering data on her. At Paris-C, Colonel Bientôt informs General Lugo of the failure of the Entente's attacks, advising him not to send more mages to assist them, but Lugo refuses, seemingly under the influence of Being X and in the Entente Ministry of Defense. It revealed that Anson Su has been promoted to colonel, but is worried about dying and leaving behind his wife and daughter Mary. At Port Arnelis, Colonel Su says goodbye to his family as he leaves for his post at Ors Fjord, and a while later, he discovers a rifle Mary has given him as a Christmas present. Meanwhile, at an imperial conference, Tanya proposes a strategic retreat that will shorten supply lines for retreating forces, allowing them to launch an offensive in the spring. She insists that while the retreat will continue the war, An offensive will exhaust the army in Norden and limit its effectiveness. Despite this, it's decided that an offensive will be carried out regardless of the potential losses. She later learns that this is a distraction so that a more ferocious attack can be made at the rear of the enemy's army. Rudersdorf sends the girls' battalion to launch a surprise attack on the heavily defended Ors Fjord. But during this attack, her battalion is intercepted by a unit of mages led by Colonel Sue. In the spur of the moment, she decides to separate her battalion into 3 companies, leading the first into battle with the mages, while the second and third to destroy defensive cannons, allowing Imperial forces to take over the port. Sue's mages are defeated, and after a duel with the girl, he falls into the sea and she recovers his rifle, claiming it for herself. Later in Arkansas, Mary Sue and her mother learn that the Ors Fjord's defenders have been wiped out, and they presume Sue has been killed. The Republican Army supports a rebel uprising in Arene City, located in former Republican territory, against Imperial occupiers, and this caused concern in the Imperial Army because the rebels now control the railroad, which carries the Imperial Army's supplies. Tanya's battalion is ordered to destroy all resistance, regardless of civilian casualties, but when they arrive, they find the city is heavily fortified. At first, they are taken aback, but then Strategic Command gives them a plan to suppress the rebellion. According to international law, if a city isn't evacuated after an evacuation order, all the remaining people will be treated as enemy soldiers. After the rebels refuse to surrender, her battalion witnesses them murder a captured Imperial soldier, and this provides her battalion with a cause for retaliation. The city is attacked by the Imperial artillery, and the civilians are massacred, allowing the Empire to regain control. When Lieutenant Grants refuses to open fire on the rebels, the girl displays her merciless nature once again by forcing him into doing so. At strategic headquarters, Zetur reveals to Rerugen that the idea for the destruction of Arene came from a thesis written by the girl herself. At an Allied Kingdom hospital, a critically wounded Colonel Sue recovers from his duel with the girl and claims that God has told him to destroy the devil. After the battle at Arena, the girl meets Major Uger from the academy, and he tells her of a plan to draw Republican forces into a trap. The plan consists of 4 phases, and Zetur orders this girl's battalion to attack the rear of the Republican forces. With the Empire spreading disinformation and tricking the Republic into believing their forces are going to retreat, Rerugen reveals that the plan's second phase is to destroy Republican headquarters, and a new high-speed rocket weapon will transport Tanya's battalion there. Meanwhile, at the Rhine, the Imperial Army retreats while secretly leaving booby traps. The Republic is unaware of this, and they confidently advance. Sue has fully recovered, and he plots his revenge on the girl who, following the success of Phase 2, leads her battalion into retreat. At the Imperial High Council, military leaders are grilled by the government on their strategy of withdrawal, until Zetur announces that the enemy command structure has been destroyed and Phase 3, the detonation of booby traps, can begin. Phase 3 sends Republican forces into disarray, and their headquarters are completely demolished. The girls' battalion is busy fighting remaining Republican soldiers when suddenly they're attacked by a Mage unit led by Sue. Seeing that her battalion is being defeated, Tanya goes on the offensive rather than retreating, and she comes face to face with Sue, recognizing him right before he is possessed by Being X and grabs hold of her. Victoria helps her break free, and she empties an entire magazine into him, penetrating his magical defenses. Sue detonates an explosive just as Imperial reinforcements arrive, and although they are severely injured, most of the girls' battalion survives. The Republic abandons Parisy, allowing the Empire to occupy it, prompting the Imperial High Council to congratulate the military, and while the rest of her battalion celebrates, she and Victoria discuss the ending of the war. She believes the Republic is planning a sea evacuation, and she wants to attack their military seaport, but she's denied permission, and she bemoans this opportunity to end the war. While the Empire celebrates the truce, Tanya explains to Rerugen that it's only a matter of time before the war restarts, as the other nations will never allow the Empire to be the most powerful country in Europe, and she is soon proved right when all the superpowers form an alliance against the Empire, and the Imperial Army realizes that the war is far from over. The girl's battalion is sent to Africa to fight against the Alliance, and she tells her soldiers that the war is proof that God has failed, once again launching her challenge against Being X. In the USA, Mary Sue, now blessed with Being X's powers, enlists in the army hoping to avenge her father by seeking revenge on Tanya.